Silence in Calanda, 1 second before 12. The hour breaks, and on Good Friday it begins to thunder as it thundered, tradition says, when Christ died. 26 hours of noise and crowds in this town that filmmaker Luis Buñuel put on the map. Today is the 125th anniversary of his birth, and his grandson has led the rompida.
When you are Easter, he would take out his drum and play just like that in the garden.
The tradition of the 17th century has attracted 40 international media this year. Noise and more noise in many corners of Spain. The Alcelos procession in Murcia. The streets become a Baroque museum with 9 steps that represent the moments of Holy Week. The Moors are full of 4 centuries of history, art, and tradition. In other places, such as Balmaceda, live performances. 600 neighbors participate in this faithful recreation of Christ's Calvary. Castro Urdiales is also a town dedicated to recreating the last moments of Jesus Christ. There are no special effects here either. Pretty exciting. I didn't think it was going to be that realistic. Another essential of the day, the holy meeting of Farol, could not be. The rain has left the steps indoors, and the thousands of attendees have had to settle for visiting them in the churches. The tradition of reproducing Bible passages has an emblematic moment in Berger, Girona. Here the dance of death, with skeletons and scythes, takes all the limelight. And in Cuenca, the procession of the Camino del Calvario is known as the mobs for a reason. Popular and exciting mixes religious steps with tradition, and leaves us another version of the thunderous sound that stars this Good Friday.
This Good Friday is being very different in the localities affected by the Dana. It is Pica in Valencia, one of the municipalities most punished by the flood. The traditional way of the cross has been making stops for some houses destroyed by water. Most of them are stuck to the Chicken Ravine, and many will have to be demolished. 10 bodies were also found in this locality. A very different Holy Week in all the affected municipalities, because almost all the temples are closed, and with a lot of damaged religious heritage that cannot be taught in the processions.
They are the 2 columns that prevented the tragedy from being even greater. Yesterday, at 10 o'clock at night, a car crashed into one of them, knocking over several tables on the terrace of this pizzeria on the Fuengirola promenade. According to several witnesses, shortly before the driver had crashed into this lamppost, tried to flee, and that's when her car ran over the terrace before crashing into another vehicle.
Here he hit the baton through all the people inside. Well, this was awful, and here I don't know how he got out and ended up there. He also ended up with the 2 rear wheels raised. Fire crews were here tending to people. I thought there was a bomb left. There were crystals everywhere.
A 25-year-old pedestrian and a 47-year-old woman, who was a co-driver in the car that caused the accident, died practically on the spot. In addition, there are 3 injured in serious condition. The avenue is usually crowded with people, and its speed limit is at 20 kilometers per hour, but according to neighbors and merchants, they are not respected.
The cars here are driving at full speed.
On this avenue, and the one that follows, if there are the signs, and they don't respect them, they pass by at any speed, you just stare. The police have already arrested the driver. He was driving under the influence of alcohol at the time of the incident, and did not have a driving license.
It is the protest of the workers of the tourism sector of the province of Santa Cruz de Tenerife on their 2nd day of strike. The unions talk about a follow-up of 70%. Yesterday, the employer reduced it to 10% and says that now the negotiations are starting from 0. The organizers have denounced in the courts the minimum services order established by the government of the Canary Islands.
It had generated great expectations, and at the same time serious doubts. But finally the photo arrived. Giorgia Meloni next to Donald Trump in the Oval Office, sharing laughs, jokes, and compliments. Even in Italian he seemed to dazzle his interlocutor. "It sounds good," he said. The American president sees in Meloni a world leader who, in the midst of the tariff crisis, has been the first leader of the European Union to set foot in the White House. She was also the only one at his inauguration as president. She has always defended Trump. They share an ideology. They couldn't agree more on immigration. And both are staunch defenders of the traditional family. That's what the special relationship they have is based on, as Giorgia Meloni said back in the day. That is why the president is offering to act as a mediator between the European Union and the United States. In fact, before traveling to Washington, he agreed with the president of the Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, on the agenda of the meeting. He was not there as a representative of the European Union, but he has managed to get a commitment from Trump, who will travel to Italy, where Meloni would host a hypothetical meeting with von der Leyen herself. Yesterday in the Oval Office, he moved with ease thanks to his good knowledge of English, and even corrected the translator. Meloni has not brought herself tangible results. Yes, promises and good words. Now it's time to wait if they are translated into facts.
I don't want tariffs to go up anymore, because if it doesn't get to a point where people stop buying. This is what Trump said from the White House. It also expects to reach agreements in 3 or 4 weeks with its trading partners, among which it expects China to be also. At the moment, the Asian country has stopped importing gas from the United States.
But what I am saying is that I wouldn't say he's done the greatest job.
Trump now says that he does not blame Zelensky for the war, although he believes that he is not doing well. The United States and Ukraine are in full negotiations over minerals. They have already signed a memorandum prior to the agreement that was left up in the air after that spat between Trump and Zelensky in the Oval Office. Now they believe that the technical details will be finished by April 26. In Kharkiv, emergency teams are attending to the dozens of injured from the latest ballistic missile attack launched by Russia, a deadly attack on Good Friday that has affected homes and a business. It has nothing to do with the army. It is a very successful civilian enterprise, confirms the mayor of the town. In neighboring Sumy, a bombardment with Iranian cruise missiles leaves another fatality. Russia has also attacked Cyprus, Kiev, Nikolaev, and Donetsk. Attacks, Zelensky denounces, on populations and infrastructures. Therefore, it calls for Patriots air defense systems. The war is not stopping, and Washington is running out of patience. If there is no progress between Kiev and Moscow, the United States will abandon the peace process, the head of US diplomacy, Marco Rubio, has said before leaving Paris. The Kremlin admits that there are concrete advances in the talks, but also difficulties to be solved. What is already practically finalized is the minerals agreement that will allow the United States to exploit Ukrainian rare earths. It will be signed next week, Trump advanced in a meeting with Meloni, and Kiev confirms it. In fact, the memorandum for the country's reconstruction fund is already ready. This is the step prior to the signing of the agreement that Trump and Zelensky could not close in their frustrated meeting at the White House.
In the middle of the darkness of the night, from the fearful glare of the bombs, it's as if the sky had turned to fire. We ran to a place to take shelter, says this injured worker of the oil port attacked in Yemen. This is how everything has turned out. There are dozens of dead and more than 100 injured. Behind, the United States, which justifies it because the port is used by the Houthi insurgents, they say, to sell fuel illegally and finance their terrorist activities. The rebels speak of a war crime in an enclave essential for the entry of goods and humanitarian aid. From there, from Yemen, a ballistic missile was launched this morning. The Israeli leadership, its army, intercepted it and activated the anti-aircraft alarms in Tel Aviv. There they have also opened to the public this tunnel that simulates any one of the Gaza Strip, so that whoever enters can put themselves in the shoes of the hostages captured by Hamas. It's been 555 days since this. And this is the letter signed by almost 1,000 Israeli war veterans and supported by more and more collectives. They want their government to negotiate the release of the prisoners, even if that means renouncing military objectives. It is clear that this war is for political reasons, not security. This former pilot regrets. In the same line is never pronounced. Netanyahu's partial agreements for a ceasefire only mask his intention to continue the war. They promise to hand over all the hostages if Israel leaves the Strip, although at the moment this is not the case. A score of civilians have been killed by Israeli attacks at various points this evening, including a journalist. There are already more than 200 informers killed there in a year and a half of war.
It's the moment when the police put the handcuffs inside that ambulance to the student who broke into shooting yesterday. On the campus of the University of Florida, there are 2 people dead and 5 hospitalized. The defendant is the son of a sheriff's office deputy. He had access to weapons and knew how to use them. The investigation is now focused on the psychological profile of the author.